Hey, Nick.
Oh, hey there.
Fancy having you on this side.
Why are you over here?
I don't know, man. There is a chair over there, which means something very different.
We do have something different, don't we?
This is a very different episode of the Kelp Bed. We have been striving for this moment for very long. We're excited about it. So let's fill that chair. And our very first guest on the Kelp Bed is Mr. Stephen Kelly.
Hey, guys.
Hey there, Steven.
How's it going?
Man, the myth, and the legend.
Oh. I don't know if I can live up to that. Dang.
I'm sure you can.
Well, give us an intro. Tell us who you are, and try and live up to that little intro there.
All right. So I'm Stephen Kelly. I've been best friends with you guys for, I've lost track of how many years.
Yeah, it's been a lot of years.
Yeah. Professionally, I am a 7th and 8th grade science teacher here locally. I also loved, video games. We all play that together. Do some video editing type stuff as well for fun, and I don't know. I can't think of anything else.
You got camping under your belt. We got you.
Oh, but who doesn't go camping? I mean,
yeah, but on the
it's
level,
on everyone's Tinder profile that they go hiking.
That is true.
The level amount that we go camping though is a little bit different.
That's true.
But I think we got you into diving this past year. That's been exciting.
That was like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a
COVID
while
kind of
now.
threw a monkey wrench into
yeah,
that.
COVID's been a while for us to have a group like this.
Yeah.
But for the reference out there, we are being safe. We've taken our precautions about that. So that's definitely important. That has been handled. But we are finally to the point, Nick and I, where we've gotten the Kelp Bed into a situation where we can have him on here, which is stoked. So
Excited about it.
You just wanted to sit closer to me.
I really did.
That was the only reason.
I did. Yes.
He missed you.
I know.
Yeah. The warmth that you put off in a warm studio, it just makes it wonderful.
So, Steven, tell us a little bit about how the ocean has influenced you.
Ooh.
Don't let that stress you
I
out.
don't. Well, I don't know what to say that you haven't already said on the podcast.
Tell us your
Because you brought me up in the podcast several times. So as previously mentioned, you got me into diving a couple of years back, and it was one of those things that was, we worked at Sports Chalet together, which is where we met, and I was dumb and didn't get diving certified. I had the opportunity. You give me crap for it all the time. I never got diving certified. So
I don't think it wasn't an interest in your.
no,
time.
it really was never on my radar.
No,
it was
you
one
were-
of the things everyone was like, "Oh yeah, no, you should totally do it." And I was like, "Sure, that's
free.
expensive."
Well, I think the thing for you at that time was you were heavy in school.
Yeah,
That's when you were finishing up the teaching credential.
at the time I was very busy because not only was I working 30 to 40 hours a week, I was also student teaching for half or a full day, and then classes for at least 3 to 4 hours every day. It was a nightmare. I'm
Well,
happy
thanks.
that
you make it
it's
sound
done.
wonderful.
Oh, you'll get through it. You'll be fine.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly. It sucked at the time, and honestly, I don't think it would have gone over as well had I not been working at Sports Chalet at the time. Had it been any of my other jobs, save for working at Boulder Dash, I think that's the only other job I could have been like, yeah, no, I got this, no problem.
Yeah.
But like when I worked mall security, I would have quit.
Yeah. No, Sports Chalet was a lot of fun. It definitely introduced. I think I mentioned it multiple times. That's how I got started in scuba heavily and the ocean very heavily, and that's what I loved about that. But it was finally what you said 2 years ago that we got you in the water.
Yeah, well, it was literally like 2 weeks before the end of that school year. And you guys, I think you had called me. First, Nick had texted me like, hey, we're going diving tomorrow. Do you want to go? And I'm like, it's a school day. Like, no way. So then the way I pictured this conversation happening was like Nick telling you, all right, it was a school day. And Kyle's like, I'll call him.
It's usually
Because
how it
then
works.
Kyle called me and I initially said no. And it took about 5 minutes of me racking my brain like, all right, sub plans. What could I do to entertain these kids for a day while I'm sick? Okay, I got it. And then I texted you, all right, I'm in.
yeah.
And literally like got home, showered, packed a bag, and was at your house, and we left at like 4 a.m.
Yep.
And that trip was fun because it's the first time I've been out on a boat in a long time that wasn't like a lake.
Yeah, I think, and it was also like you were saying, it was like one of your first experiences on like a friend's boat or like a private boat that
Yeah.
was like you
Like
didn't
my
have
uncle
to-
had a boat.
Yeah.
We only ever did lake things.
Right. And
So-
so the ocean for you was a big eye opener. And I remember that trip very vividly. That was a fun trip for everyone.
That was.
Even though Nick and I, so Steven didn't have any dive gear, obviously,
No.
had no dive experience.
I sat on the boat the whole
He's-
time.
Yeah. He sat on the boat the whole time, but we ended up all sitting on the boat. Nick and I dropped down probably 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, the weather was not very good. The viz was terrible.
It was pretty bad.
right.
The weather was beautiful.
Well, the weather was nice.
viz was bad.
The viz was
Viz was
bad,
bad.
and
Yeah.
it was a little choppy.
Even though we were at the islands, the viz was bad. And you know viz is bad when the islands viz is bad.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
that was. But I mean, as far as it went, it was just the 3 of us chilling at. We were on. Where were we
I
at?
think we were Yellowbanks.
Yellowbanks, yeah, Yellowbanks. And we were just chilling. I mean, we swam to the shore. We were just chilling on the beach, and I think even that's one of my Instagram posts where I still reference today is where I have we were using bell peppers as little cigarettes. And
No, it wasn't bell peppers. It was kelp. I took the picture.
that's right. Yeah. So
It was kelp.
yeah, so that was your first experience, kind of
Going out with you guys on
far on the water,
yeah.
but you didn't even. Did you? I think you got in the water for a little bit.
Well, so the ocean has never really been like my family's thing. The only time we ever really went to the beach, there were the occasional beach trips, but like most of the time, every October-ish, we would go camping for Halloween, which I know sounds like a weird time to go camping.
It does. It's a very weird. It's like
It's like the start of a horror movie.
well, it's the start of a horror.
We always had themes. It was great.
Really? That's
yeah.
Oh yeah, you guys always made your own flags.
Yeah,
too.
we made a flag every year.
Yeah.
That was a lot, and it was me, my parents, and then my extended family, my aunt, my uncle, and my 3 cousins. So it was we'd invite any extended relatives or friends. It was a lot of fun, and we'd always go to Sycamore Canyon up in Malibu. So like, that's not the best place to go.
No, but I mean, as far as like that's still an exposure to the beach and the
Yeah.
ocean, which
You can walk from the campsite. You can walk over the freeway to the
Right.
beach. Which
Yeah.
is, but yeah, I mean, other than that, I definitely didn't do a ton of stuff with the ocean. Now, I being in Boy Scouts, which I was, big nerd right here.
you're an Eagle Scout.
I am an Eagle Scout.
Card Karen. Eagle
Card,
Scout.
it is in my wallet. That's if I ever get pulled over. I can be like, oh, I'm an Eagle Scout. Help
Yeah.
me. Never actually used it that way, though. But we would go to summer camps on Catalina. I went there, I think, 2 or 3 times. There's a camp called Cherry Valley,
Right.
which, there's we have that zombie podcast we love. One of their
Yeah.
new arcs is on Catalina from Emerald Bay and
Yeah.
Cherry Valley. So I was like, oh, I'm so excited for that because they're places I recognize. But even then, like, I would do like the swim test because the water was actually warm right off the islands, but I didn't really do any of the like water sports. I think I did my swimming merit badge there just because I had to, because I was 17 and I needed it to get my Eagle.
Right.
So I was like, well, this is my last chance.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, like you said, I was never really a beach person. And like there was, I think right around the same time we went diving, we and your buddy Jordan all went to the beach.
Yeah,
one
we
day.
had the beach day. Yeah, that was the first day we discovered
And
I've talked about it here before that you had ever been swimming in the ocean.
That's
I would
right.
wade in
Yeah,
the ocean.
That's right.
Right.
But I've never played in the waves. I never like swam around. It was always just like I'd go in until I couldn't touch the bottom, and then I'd go back.
Right. And this day was a huge day as far as surf. So we spent a lot of time in the water, and this was a hot day in
Well, it was
summer.
right after we'd played like hours of spike ball. Too.
Right. So we spent a lot of time on the beach, on the sand, playing, and we're all out in the water, and we've got Nick and I and Jordan and I are swimming in these huge waves and trying to surf them.
Yep.
And then it's while we're out there swimming, and you're like, I think this is the first time I swam in the ocean, and it's fun with you guys. And we all looked at each other like,
Oh no.
oh God. And as we're watching the surf just get bigger and bigger, and we're all like, this is awesome. We're body surfing. This is great. And I'm looking at Steven. He's getting wide-eyed. You're getting wide-eyed. You're
Yeah.
like,
There were a couple times I got pulled under and stayed under for a little longer than I wanted to be. And I was like, oh, this is terrible. At one point I did hit my head on the bottom.
yeah,
And I was
I
like,
remember that.
Oh, yep. I'm going in. I'm done.
but at the same time, it's like you look at that today and you think of that
Yeah.
time in the waves, and it's like, how much has that had any effect on you, like as far as like mentally with the ocean? Has it
I
changed?
mean, it's completely changed my perspective. The ocean for me has always been kind of scary and sandy and salty, and
Right.
like nobody wants to be covered in sand and salt if it can't, don't have to be. But like it's one of those things I was thinking, all right, well, that wasn't terrible, and especially leading into us then starting to free dive,
right.
it really kind of helped prepare me for that, because I mean, free diving, it was like we just got to get past the waves,
Right.
and I mean, every time the couple of times we've been able to go out, that was always the struggling part for me, was getting past the waves to the kelp bed and then
Yeah.
coming back. because I'm not a strong swimmer.
No.
I've gotten better, but I'm not a strong swimmer.
Right. And that's the nice part about freediving, though, is like we wear out here in California, we wear 5 mil wetsuits, so we float. You float.
Oh,
and so, like you said, getting past the waves and like that's even for me. And I'm in a relatively good amount of shape, and Nick has huge legs and can pump and kill anything with his legs.
That's not supposed to mean.
I'm just saying, you're a muscular human being. So
You got nice legs. That's what he's saying.
Thank you. Dude.
So getting through the waves for Nick is nothing because he can power through it. But but once you get there and once you get past and you get into the kelp bed, you can sit there and relax and really take it in. But that's what I was going to ask you is like, did that have a mental effect on you and finally break maybe a barrier or two?
Oh, definitely. I would say that the first time we went out, I was terrified.
Yeah.
And especially because, and it's the same when you and I do go out hiking and things like that. You trust that I'll be fine, so you just kind of go.
Yeah.
And I freak out because I'm like, I'm swimming in the big ocean and Kyle's gone. And then you'll like dive down and be like, and now I can't see him.
Yeah.
Just going to float here and wait for sharks to eat me.
I could see how that could be a little bit scary as a beginner.
A little bit, yeah.
Like not really knowing what's going on.
Like
just
literally
having
my
somebody-
first time out, he just goes. And then at some point he was like halfway, he had just passed where the break was. He turns back, he's like, "You coming?"
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm trying. I think I was actually like pissed off at that point just
I'm
at
sure.
myself.
Yeah.
Because I was like, why can't I swim faster? This sucks. And the waves were just like pushing me back and pushing me back. And I was starting to get frustrated.
Yeah,
But
there's been a couple of times where waves have been pretty significant when we're trying to beach dive.
mm-hmm.
I can remember the very first time ever with lobster season with
Oh,
you and
my
Jordan.
God, yeah, that was.
I think I had my open water. I'd never done a night dive. It was your first night dive.
Yeah, it was my first night dive.
And we were pushing out at Deer Creek, and it was probably, I'm going to say 4 to 5 foot.
Oh, dang.
Easy.
And
in
my
the dark.
God.
In the dark. Take
In
my
the
this is
dark.
in the dark. I'm
Yeah.
sitting on PCH watching
No,
this happen.
thank you.
Right.
Did you go in that time?
No, I
You
didn't have anything.
Right? Okay,
I was
that's
still
right.
I was still in my
Yeah,
open water
that's
class. And they were like, just get your gear and like get your rentals and like go out. I'm like, no, I can't do that. It's against the rules. Blah, blah, blah.
I'm not certified.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Seeing what happened, yeah. Because there was 2 other divers, which actually ended up being other Sports Relay employees from the Oxnard store that I found out about, which was
Oh.
funny. They had come to our store and worked, and I talked to them. I was like, yeah, I went out this night. It was crazy strong, and my 2 friends got ripped apart, and they came back in. Turns out they were on shore. Watch the experience these fools had, and they were like, no, we're not going we're not going in.
Well, I'm glad that
So
we
what?
I'm glad that we helped
man.
them make their decision that night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dang.
Yeah, I love night dives, but man, getting out there from a beach, from a beach dive, that's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Night diving on a beach is
Well,
sucks.
and the 2 times we've been able to go out, the viz has been pretty bad. The
Yeah.
first time wasn't terrible. I think we had maybe 2 feet, 3 feet of viz. The second time out, which you have talked about on this podcast, I bonked my head because I didn't have a spear gun. So I'm just swim, bottom.
Oh, you hit the bottom with
Yeah,
your
he-
head?
I bonked my head.
Yeah.
Ouch.
I made the point of like, hey, if you stick your head straight down and swim straight down, it's a lot less time. It's a lot less air hole.
Forgot to
Rather-
say, put your hand in front of you so you
Right,
don't,
because you don't have a spear gun.
because I don't have a spear gun.
For everybody that
Because he's
doesn't-
thinking he's got a spear gun.
yeah,
I hold it.
I hold it so I don't bonk my head. So
Exactly.
Steven must obviously know how to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, for everybody that doesn't know how to spearfish or has never been spearfishing, when you dive down when you're spearfishing, you hold your spear gun so that the tip hits the ground first.
Yeah.
Just in case you don't see the bottom. Steven didn't have a spear gun.
Yeah.
No.
And it's hard out here with a lot of random rocks and sometimes
I'm just happy I hit sand
Sand.
and not rocks.
yeah, that's for sure.
Because that would have been a lot worse.
Man, you were just like swimming full speed straight down, basically.
Yeah, which isn't very fast for me, but
Still, I
You
mean,
were sinking
ow.
faster.
I was thinking fast.
Ouch.
Yeah. But the first time, I think it was the first time we went out, there was that harbor seal.
Yeah.
And dude was just chilling with us for the entire time. And so it was kind of nice for me. It was like I had a little buddy to hang out with because Kyle was diving without me.
I was trying to get fish.
and I was like, all right, well, I'll just hang out with you. Every time I dive down, it would disappear. And by the time I'd be like towards the bottom, it would show up and just like stare at me. And I'm like, hey,
Mhm.
I'm happy you're a harbor seal and not
Yeah.
a sea lion.
Seriously.
Yeah, the sea lions are scary.
Yeah, they're nasty.
So everybody's always scared of sharks when you're talking about diving, but the sea
Yeah.
lions are worse, I think.
Well, I've gone kayaking in the harbor, out here, and I've had sea lions just like roll up onto the kayak
Oh yeah.
and like bark at me, and I'm like, get off, go away.
Yeah, they're very
mean.
territorial.
Yeah.
And they're very curious, which is not fun.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So changing the subject a little bit here, now that we know a couple of your experiences,
Yeah.
how has that impacted the way that you teach? Because you do teach science, so how does that impact it?
I mean, my outdoor experiences in general have always informed my teaching. I mean, to highlight an example, one of the subjects that I cover in 7th grade is biomes. And so one of the projects that I've done in the past is have the kids pick a national park and describe the biome of that national park. So like my
That's
my
cool.
outdoor experiences have really informed my teaching.
Right.
When I go through different biomes, especially biomes is the easiest because that's literally nature.
Right.
I try to throw in as many of like my own pictures and stuff, some of the diving pictures that we've done, things like that, just because I teach to, lower income, low socioeconomic kids, and most of them aren't going to have any of these experiences,
Right.
at least in their childhood. My fingers are always crossed that they're going to pull themselves out and have those experiences as adults, but most of them won't get those experiences as kids. So I try to bring as much of my experiences in for them. I mean, we're completely digital right now, which, let me tell you, not my favorite way to teach, but one of the fun things is I can change my virtual background. And so I just put all my pictures.
Oh, that's smart. That's
so
cool.
like today was my eclipse picture. All last week was all my pictures from our Mammoth trip a couple weeks ago. But yeah, so I try to bring in as much real world experience from me as much as I can for the students, and most of them want to know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, does that seem to pique their interest?
Yeah, they're very curious about it. I mean, I know one of the things that I've used is there's a program that I use kind of like PowerPoint called Nearpod, but it allows me to control what they see on their screens because they all have Chromebooks. One of the things I can put in there is 360 pictures.
Oh, sick.
And so
That's pretty cool.
we can I can put in, so like when I go over biomes, I also go over ocean and freshwater. Now, I wish I could go into more detail with them and go over coral reef and the abyssal zone and everywhere else. Kelp
Caribbean,
forest. But instead, I just kind of have to go over salty, not salty, because it's 7th grade. I gotta lay the foundation and let somebody else build on it.
Right.
But being able to throw in a 360 picture of the kelp forest is amazing. When they're moving around, and I think the picture I've got has this, like, if you look hard enough, there's a sea bass just like right in the kelp.
That's cool.
I always try to find pictures that aren't just plants, that have some animal life in there too, because that's the one the kids are always like, oh, where is it? But those 360 pictures actually come in really handy too, because I do natural disasters as part of my curriculum, and of course, with everything going on right now in California, fires is one of the ones that I always bring in, 360 pictures that I've found from a lot of our fires and things like that. Also, I don't know if you guys saw, but Governor Newsom actually signed a bill today to allow former inmates who went through the firefighter program to become professional firefighters.
Yep, saw that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They've been talking about it for a while, so it's kind of...
I'm happy to hear it, because, I mean, we already use a lot of our inmates to fight the fires as it is, and when they get out, they're looking for a job. Right. So, it's nice to see that we're taking that step in the right direction. I mean, there's a lot more specifics and some steps they have to go through to get to that point, but it's a nice step in the right direction, I think, especially with the fire issues we have.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, teaching my kids, I have to keep it interesting.
So when you're teaching, though, do you face limitations from either from your district or from what you're able to teach, like per state, or like what you're restricted to? And is that, knowing what you know about the ocean, especially out here, like especially how bad the situation of pollution has gotten?
Yeah.
How does that affect your teaching? Are you able to teach about anything like that? Or
luckily, especially here in California, things are very progressive as far as political opinions on climate change and things like that. So I don't have to tiptoe necessarily on those topics, which is great. I mean, I did an entire week-long investigation, which was teaching my kids how to graph properly, but it was literally graphing CO2 emissions from like the 1920s all the way up to the 2010s.
That's impressive. And this is
cool.
This is a 7th and 8th grade class.
Yeah.
Like, this is
Well, I split it up into decades. So each class got a decade to graph, and then we literally put all the graphs together.
Do you see their faces kind of get that like either grim or like light up when they see that big spike?
They look at it, and it's just like little, and then it just and you know I have to line up the graphs,
Right.
Because everyone's graph has a different scale on the side, so I have to line up the graphs, and it just ends up being paper that just kind of diagonals up the whiteboard.
Jeez.
Which actually is funny because you know my cousin works for JPL,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things she worked on is the CO2 tracking system. Right? She came in for career day and started talking about it, and my kids were like,
Wait, we did
"We
this.
did that."
That's so
She's
cool.
like, "Really?" I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah," and I pulled out the graph. She's like, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So that's one of the benefits. Now, also being a permanent teacher and not having to worry necessarily about my job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have a little bit more leeway, but I also work with an amazing team of science teachers, and we are all on the same page. We all, you know, are very much, we need to educate these kids about things like climate change and pollution, so that way we can, you know, have our future voters and our future business people better educated so they know what to do when they're faced with these challenges. You know, as far as the ocean goes, I mean, my school is a block from the ocean.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
And most of my students, like they go to the ocean as much as they can.
Right.
So for
It's
a lot
a free,
of
amazing form of entertainment. So why would you not go?
for some of them, it's like literally like their backyard
Right.
is the ocean. So it's something that we can all really connect on because, I mean, I don't live where I teach.
Right.
I drive 40 minutes to get to where I teach.
But
by design.
But in perspective, 40 minutes from your school is still, you're still 15 minutes from the beach. Like, in that area. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's not that different, but I mean, the cities are very different.
Right.
And the populations are very different. And so being able to connect with my students that way is really beneficial.
Yeah, it gives you a starting point to build upon.
Well, of course, I'm a huge nerd and I play video games, so they all are just like,
Yeah. So
yeah, that helps. Doing a
Definitely.
book review about the Halo novels and being in my homemade Spartan armor helped as well.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so as far as like your future goes, how do you see yourself moving forward as far as having the ocean impact you?
I mean, we need to get in the water more.
Yeah, that's
is
for
true.
sure. Yeah. I mean, once, you know,
We gotta wait.
certain
for
situations in
things.
the world calm down.
Yeah.
We'll be getting there. Yeah. So
Well, and of course, like the one time, for the first time like ever, that you and I had schedules where we could just do whatever we wanted, locked down.
everything was. We drove to.
Yeah.
I know.
Driving to the beach, and I've said it before. It's just like it was literally just every 5 feet was a cone on the beaches, and it's just like I said it a couple episodes ago. It's just like how. And you just got to understand that something else is going on because it's like, why are you closing down something that's free that gathers people rather than trying to open up stuff that's, you know.
Well, and not to get overly political, but it's one of those things. It's like if we're gonna open some, you're gonna be inundated with people, right?
Yeah.
So
You're going to get people coming from other areas
yeah,
just
who,
because those
who
specific
want to go
beaches
there
are
because
open.
they know it's open. And I mean, we had the same problem with camping because I know all three of us wanted to go camping right at the beginning of the summer, but nowhere was open.
It was, yeah.
And the places that had, started to open were already full.
Right.
Because everyone was looking to get out of their houses.
See, but that's what kills me too. Is it's like I loved seeing the amount of people that actually still listened to that and understood that.
Yeah.
Why does it take that much to go wrong for people to realize that they need to be paying attention to what people are doing and saying for them that's a positive impact that's going to help a situation? Why is this not happening when we talked about on this last episode that when people reach 39,000 feet deep underwater, we're still finding human plastic? Like, why is that not a cue in itself to start being like, maybe I need to start being more conscious about things that I use and do?
Yeah.
And it was cool to see people not going to the beaches and stuff, but that's why can we not take from that? You still see it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is just selective vision. If it's not in front of you, you don't see it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know when COVID started and the lockdown started and we first started to go all digital, my department was scrambling to figure out what we were going to do for the kids, because while school was closed, it wasn't canceled.
Right.
So we got a nice like month-long break because they just took the 2 weeks before spring break and lumped it with the 2 weeks of spring break and said, all right, you have a month. When we come back in second week of April, it's back to school, which had its own problems and challenges. But we were struggling to figure out, okay, what are we going to do with our kids for the rest of the year? You know, the book we had at the time, we were trying out new textbooks. None of those were digital. And if they were, they weren't easy to use. And so we were trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this stuff? Well, one of the resources we have is actually through the Scholastic company. And it's called Science World. And it's literally just a magazine designed for kids all about science stuff.
Kind of like what we had, like highlights back
Yes,
in the day.
exactly. Exactly. And one of the articles that we found was an entire article, an entire lesson on the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Yeah.
And so we spent 2 weeks with our students going over the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. We had, it was started with reading the article. Then it was doing a little bit of research on their own, doing this thing called a one-pager where they take a single piece of paper and they have to have certain requirements, certain numbers of pictures, and they just make like a one-page kind of summary of their information about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And so, I had maybe a handful of students who were like, I already know about all this, that ended up giving me some pushback because they're like, oh, why do we have to hear about this again? And it's
Really?
like,
Yeah.
which bothered me because it's like, first off, you're like 12 years old.
Yeah.
You're going to hear about this forever until we do something about it.
At this point,
Exactly.
yeah, until it's gone.
Until we
basically.
do something about it, you're going to hear about it. But the article wasn't just like Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It was highlighting, and I can't remember his name, but it was highlighting this kid and some engineers who were developing systems to clean it up. And it was a whole like engineering article about his whole design, their first run. It was the one that basically, kind of like the some of those fishing nets.
Yeah.
That they just drag through to pick things up and then haul it back.
Yeah,
and,
I've seen those, and it's basically like a fishing net, right?
Yeah.
And then it just comes to like a conveyor belt and then drops into like this big
That's
storage
the one.
bin, and then
and I mean, I remember over the summer there were reports and news articles of like they were coming back from their third and fourth trips with thousands of tons of plastics.
Jesus.
And what really shocked a lot of my kids was what was in there.
Yeah.
Because, they looked at pictures, and a lot of us hear stories about plastic bags and the shopping bags. I mean, we live in a state where the traditional shopping bags have been just completely gotten rid of, and we have those thicker, recyclable, reusable ones.
Yeah, you get like 100 uses out of them.
Yeah. And most of them were like, oh, yeah, it's just like shopping bags and straws.
Yeah.
Because
That's the other big one is straws.
at the time, that was when the like Visco Save the Sea Turtle memes and craze was going on, to which my kids all loved.
So do you see that huge impact that social media has on these kids nowadays? Like, as a teacher, do you view that, do you try and utilize it almost and or does it just, you think it's just becoming
a lot of times when it comes to social media, I'm having to do more damage control than teaching, because a lot of what they see, because social media is unregulated for the most part. It's unfiltered.
Yeah.
I mean, look at everything that's happened with COVID and all the information and misinformation that's come from it, all sides.
Right.
So a lot of times with my students, it's more just like they tell me something. Oh, well, I saw this on Instagram or I saw this on TikTok. It's like, all right, let me break that down. They're halfway there, but like we need to give you a little bit more information to make it make sense.
Right.
There are definitely a lot of things that my kids see on social media that like does help for sure.
Oh,
it at least sparks that interest.
Right.
But yeah, some of the students were really surprised at all the stuff that ends up in that garbage patch. Like they saw full on like car seat.
Yeah.
Like baby car seat. And
Hey, we were
like,
talking about it last episode.
strollers, and they're like, what the hell?
They're finding, actual candy wrappers, like visibly readable candy wrappers.
At 7 miles deep.
7 miles deep in the ocean. That's crazy.
Oh yeah.
And it's the hard part about this garbage patch too is like it's such a norm and it's been there for so long now that creatures are now.
It's one of 6.
It's one of 6 in the world, but it's becoming an ecosystem. Like the problem is there's the life around it is now not even evolving or adapting to it. They're just trying to basically survive.
Yeah.
And that's what's just awful is, you constantly see it. You just find, dead animals on the beach and they pop them open and it's just plastic.
Especially the seabirds.
Yeah.
Those are the saddest because they're the ones, one, they're already like tangled up in fishing line, because they flew around, didn't see it and got tangled up. But then you cut them open and it's just full of microplastics.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Another thing that really shocked my students was that they thought it was just like an island of trash.
They thought you could just like walk on.
Yeah, they thought it was something that like it was just an island in the middle of the ocean that you could just like walk around on. But to see it and it's literally just like a soup of plastic and trash that you can't walk around on. But if you try to like swim through it, you're gonna get tangled and you're gonna drown. Well, you try to boat through it, it's gonna get caught in the prop and then the boat's not gonna work anymore.
Right. And that's only what's on the surface, too.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when you see pictures of that type of stuff, you don't see what's below it.
It's
kind of like an iceberg, right?
Yeah, at some points it's a couple meters
Absolutely.
deep. It's just of plastic and stuff that's wrapped up in other stuff. So,
and that's the stuff that's still floating. There's still stuff on the bottom, too.
But it's great to hear that that's actually making its way into classrooms. Like, that's what's important is I think you're on the front lines of education right now. It's like, are you starting to see that turn of more of like, this is the ecosystem, this is an ocean, onto like conservation of like, we need to protect these guys?
Well, so over the last, it's now like 8 years, I think, since we adopted our new science standards. Part of our new science standards, so the next generation science standards are what the United States adopted for standards for science. And each state got to kind of add their own spin to it. They could add or take away, I think it was something like 5 to 10% of the standards. So what California did was they added a whole nother section, environmental principles and practices. And it's entirely focused on that conservation and recycling, reducing, reuse, everything. And so I've had to go through trainings my entire teaching career, which, to be fair, is only 5 years. But
yeah, it's still 5 years.
Every year I'd have to go to trainings and because everyone's still trying to figure out these new standards. We just piloted a textbook last year because it took the textbook companies 6 years to work their way through the standards to put it into a meaningful textbook that we can then try to use.
That's crazy.
So, through all these trainings, when we design lessons, we have to hit certain marks. It's not just about the standard and what the standard says. We also need to make sure that we have these things called cross-cutting concepts, science and engineering practices, but then also the environmental principles. And trying to incorporate all of that is time-consuming,
right?
And it can be a big challenge. But honestly, with COVID, when we started, redesigning our lessons for digital, it turned out to be a lot easier. Because we ended up just kind of going, all right, we're just going to do current events for the rest of the year.
That's awesome, yeah.
7th and 8th grade do not share standards. They're supposed to be very different standards. But we ended up just like working together.
Yeah.
And the 7th and 8th grade teachers was like, all right, we're just going to plan the rest of the year. We're all going to do the same thing. And it was, current events starting with the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and then moving on from there. So that... as terrible as it is, it has, at least personally for me, has helped me in my career as far as like collaborating with other science teachers, other like-minded individuals to really, like you said, be on the front lines.
Yeah.
To try to educate these kids to make sure that they're ready to face those decisions
right
when they're the ones that have to make them.
Yeah.
Do you think your age, like you being younger on the teaching, we can all remember our teachers being scraggly old women and that grumpy old man, right? Like, I don't know, yeah, come on, like
jacket with leather patches.
Yeah, exactly. You all remember those old grouchy ass teachers, like, and you're a lot younger, and it's like you're teaching younger kids. Like, do you feel you have a much bigger impact like that? Like,
oh, definitely. Having so much more in common with them, being able to relate to them, especially when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
There are some teachers at my school. Now, I'm blessed that my department, they are all very tech savvy.
Yeah.
And if they're not, they talk to the rest of us. But there are other teachers on my campus who they avoid technology at all costs. And
Dang.
So, of course, starting all digital has been real fun for them.
Yeah.
But being tech savvy, having common interests like video games and being able to talk. I remember when Endgame came out. We saw it first night, and I had school the next day. And so a kid had come up to me and said, "Oh, did you see Endgame yet?" I was like, "Yeah, I saw it last night." "Oh, what did you think of it?" I went, "Stop. There are no spoilers in this classroom. You and I already saw it. But
This is a safe zone.
But I guarantee there are more kids in this room that haven't seen it yet that are going to see it this weekend."
Yeah,
And so I was like, 2 weeks, then we can talk about it.
that's awesome.
That's cool.
But yeah, I would also say that, being younger, because a lot of last year is when like the OK Boomer memes started to come out. And I remember one time a kid actually asked if I was a boomer, and I got like offended. I was
How
like,
dare you?
"Do I look like a boomer?"
Yeah.
So it definitely helps being a lot younger, being able to relate to them on more than just like one or two dimensions, like being able to relate to them. It was not that long ago since I was a kid, which helps a lot. We like all the same things. I mean, I do the national initiative called Hour of Code every December, which is, trying to get kids into coding. And I couple that with bringing in my homemade gaming PC. And of course the kids look at that and like, "You built a computer?" Because to them, they've grown up around the technology.
Yeah.
They don't know you can actually like take things apart and put them back together.
Right.
So, but yeah, that definitely helps.
Awesome. I think, and that's what the whole message here is getting that connection, getting us involved, and getting people into it is, what we're all about here. And to the point where we can finally have you here and discuss that. But it's awesome to hear that you're one of the few and most proud people that I know. And like, you're one of the people that I look up to the most. And I just love hearing that we're getting that connection outside of just whatever media or source that we're used to. So,
well, hurry up and finish school so we can just
teach together.
Yeah,
I know, right? Yeah.
Our friend Thomas has an interview with my district next week. And
That's
I'm
awesome.
so excited.
There we go.
I'm just slowly trying to bring all my friends who are in education to just join my district.
We got to get the good views in there. We got to get
I want them all to come join, because I mean, the district I teach in is great, and I mean the school I'm at is amazing. My department is great, and being able to teach to the kids who have less opportunities than where like we all grew up.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference. I feel like I can do a lot more, and I can.
That's awesome.
I feel like I can just like. Because a lot of teachers avoid the middle school grades because they're like, well, they're not young and impressionable like middle school or like elementary school kids. They're not just going to do what I say.
Yeah.
And they're not high schoolers who are mature enough to do what I say.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, yeah, but in middle school is when you can like, you literally, by the time they get to high school, they've become their own person.
Yeah. Right.
They've developed into who they're pretty much going to be as a young adult and eventually an adult.
Yeah.
In middle school, you get to literally shape that yourself, and you can watch them and influence them to really go after their goals and to really strive to do better. And especially in where I teach, for a lot of them, doing better is what they all want, but none of them think they can, and that's disheartening. But being able to just be like, no, you can, and here's how, and to watch them go, oh, I can.
Yeah.
So
awesome. That's the motivation we all need.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. It's nice hearing how that is impacting the kids. Yeah. It's cool to hear that. It's nice.
Yeah, it leaves you speechless almost. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, it really does. So,
yeah, it's gonna make me happy to be hopefully a part of that one day. And it's
not hopefully, you will.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a part of that one day. And it's I have this media and this platform right now to spread whatever positive messages I can right now with Nick. So that's what we're here for. And yeah, man. I mean, I think that's pretty much it.
I think it's a good place to end.
Yeah,
I think so.
Awesome,
Mic
man. Well,
drop.
Yeah, we appreciate you being the inaugural person here.
Yeah,
so.
Appreciate it.
I didn't mind being your guinea pig.
Awesome, man. All righty, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.
We'll see you in 2 weeks.